taking place at the same time, a concomitant attack on the US dollar, and it collapses, and all the paper money in the world collapse, and the US economy collapses, and then Israel replaces the United States as the ruling state in the world. That big war is likely to inflame the passions of the Muslims around the world to such a fever pitch that the Saudi government cannot allow the Hajj to take place, because such a Hajj would likely threaten the foundations of the Saudi state. And so they might use some cock and bull story about some virus which is a great danger to health, and get World Health Organization to issue an advisory, and then they suspend the Hajj. And then the next year they continue the suspension until eventually the Hajj is abandoned. And so this event...
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Bismillahi awwaluhu wa akhiruh. I gave this lecture, I think it was about 2004 perhaps, at the Jama Masjid in San Fernando. It was a series of lectures on Surah Al-Kahf. And in that series of lectures, there is this clip on Gog and Magog and the Hajj. And I said in that clip that there might be some virus which would come, and it will be used as the excuse to try to first suspend the Hajj, not abandon. And after suspension, another year, another suspension, and then a following suspension. Only when there has been no Hajj for several years, then we are entitled to now declare the Hajj has been abandoned. But now let me share with you the analysis, pick up from where I was talking 15. And notice I was a younger man in those days. I've become older now. Let me pick up from where I left off 15 years or 16 years ago, namely the timeline. This is my opinion. And you must not accept my opinion unless you are convinced that it is correct. This is my respect for your rational faculty. I said 15 years ago that there is a great war which is coming. The Christian eschatology, the Jewish eschatology calls it Armageddon. And our prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, called it the Malham. And we have information about that war that they don't have. We know, for example, that 99% of those who fight in that war would be killed, and therefore this cannot be conventional warfare. This has to be warfare using weapons of mass destruction. Now then, that war is going to bring about the passage, in our opinion, the passage from Pax Americana to Pax Judaica, and this will inflame passions in the world of Islam against the Saudi leadership, which betrayed Islam. Betrayed. They are agents of Gog and Magog. They are agents of the Judeo-Christian Zionist Alliance. Those are the people who rule in Saudi Arabia. And so the Saudi regime is going to be placed in a very dangerous situation after the Great War. Any Hajj which takes place after that could bring about the collapse of the Saudi regime. And so this is my analysis. That is, that they will have to take steps to suspend the Hajj and eventually get it abandoned before that Great War. The Great War has not as yet taken place. And so here is my timeline. My timeline is that, yes, our prophet spoke about Jerusalem being center stage, and then he said about Medina being in forlorn desolation. This is already in place. And then he said the next thing will be the Great War. And I am suggesting that before the Great War takes place, there has to be a suspension of the Hajj, and then followed by another suspension, and so on, in order to protect the Saudi regime when the Great War takes place. After the Great War takes place, the next event would be the conquest of Constantinople. And then after that, the next event would be the Khuruj of Dajjal. And only after the Khuruj of Dajjal would you have Imam al-Mahdi, the emergence of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, and the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. Those the deaf, the dumb, and the blind, who absolutely insist with obstinacy that you cannot have any Gog and Magog in the world until Jesus has returned. Leave them, leave them. They are people who no longer have the capacity to think and to study the Quran. But for the rest of you, and mashallah, there are so many of you there who are prepared to think. We are saying to you that our hadith, the Prophet ﷺ has made this prophecy, which is there in the clip, and which is in Sahih Bukhari, لَتُحَنْجَنَّ الْبَيْتِ, that you will most certainly perform the Hajj. وَلَا يُؤْتَمَرَنَّ, and you will most certainly continue to perform the Umrah to the house of Allah. بَعْدَ خُرُوجِ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ, even after Gog and Magog have been released. Did you hear that? Even after Gog and Magog have been released, the Hajj will still continue. The Umrah will still continue even after Gog and Magog have been released. لا تقوم الساعة حتى لا يحج. Then the hadith continues to say that the last hour will not come until the Hajj no longer takes place. The Hajj no longer takes place. A suspension of the Hajj for 1 year does not qualify as fulfillment of this hadith. So yes, there may have been suspensions of the Hajj in the past. Why waste our time with that? We're not concerned with that. He said, لا تقوم الساعة حتى لا يحج. He's talking about when the Hajj no longer takes place. Let us ask the schoolboys, give us a break. We are people who think they cannot think, they've lost the capacity for thinking. So when the Hajj no longer takes place, no more Hajj, then you can no longer say that Gog and Magog have not as yet been released. No, you'll be very wrong. It will not be possible for you to say, no, Hajj, Gog and Magog can only come after Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns. You have betrayed the Quran. You have refused to study the Quran, and now you pay the price for that betrayal. This is the importance of that clip of 15 or 16 years ago. Now then we turn to another subject, and give me a little chance. I'm getting reports from many parts of the world that the law now does not permit us to perform Salatul Jummah. We are prohibited from leaving our homes. We are prohibited, as in Trinidad and Tobago, from being in a gathering of more than 10 people. And so the Salatul Jummah is now in a difficulty. What do we do? There are two azans I know of. Allah speaks in the Quran and He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have faith in Allah, إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمْعَةِ, when the azan is called for the day, on the day of Jum'ah, for the Salatul Jummah, فَسَعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, then hasten to the remembrance of Allah. So in order for you to have the salat, you must have the azan. And in one azan you say, Hayya ala salat, come, you're calling the people, come, 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 all of you come, everybody come for salat. It is obligatory. But suppose when rain is falling, the azan will change and the muazzin will now say, Salli fi buyutikum, perform your salat in your homes. But I've never heard about an azan where come for salat, but you must not come with more than 10 people. That is not an azan. So what do? If you have a Salatul Jum'ah, and when more than 10 people come, you do not allow them to pray because the law does not allow it, you are not performing Salatul Jum'ah. That is an invalid salat. It will not be accepted. Do I need to repeat that 5,000 times? You cannot restrict the number of people for Salatul Jum'ah. Do I need to repeat that 10,000 times? The law does not permit you to restrict the number of people. No, the law from Allah and His Messenger. But when the law of the land tells you you're not allowed to have more than 10, the answer is you have to suspend Salatul Jum'ah. You will not have to answer to Allah. The government will have to answer to Allah, not you. And you will continue with no Salatul Jum'ah like this until either they lift the restriction or you make hijrah and you go somewhere else where you can live in submission to Allah's law. And so my answer and my guidance to you is don't seek to defy the government in India. No. If you are in India, listen to me. If you are in India, listen to me. This government of India is a Zionist government. Yes, it is an enemy, but not all Hindus are like that. No. There are Hindus who have integrity. There are Hindus who can think, and there are Hindus who can recognize that the government of Israel is an oppressor. And the government of India, which supports Israel, is an oppressor. There are Hindus who can think. So don't condemn Hinduism. Condemn the government of India, but don't condemn and don't disrespect Hinduism. So if the government of India prohibits you from gathering in the masjid, obey. Obey. Do not go to the masjid to perform your salat if the law does not allow you to do so. In other parts of the world, if you allowed only 10 people, don't have a Salatul Jum'ah with only 10 because that is an invalid salat. Remember what I'm telling you so you don't have to answer on Judgment Day, okay? For performing an invalid salat and misguiding the people. Be careful, do not misguide the people. You have to suspend the Salatul Jum'ah. What about the Salat bil Jama'ah, the congregational salat? The congregational salat or the salat bil jama'ah, for example, salatul zuhr, cannot be held with restrictions. No. If 10 people come and number 11 come and tell them, no, you cannot join, that is an invalid salat. So if you cannot perform the salatul Jum'ah, you cannot perform any salat bil jama'ah if you are going to restrict. If you allow the people to come, fine, the salat will be valid. If you put no restriction, the salat will be valid. But if you don't put a restriction and more than 10 people come, in this country you can be fined $50,000. I don't have that money to pay. And also you can go to the jail for 6 months. Now then, we turn to another subject. And that is that the virus which has now come has caused a unique world to emerge. It is a world which is unlike any other previous world that mankind has ever witnessed. It is still too early, as I said, for us to make a mature analysis of what is happening in the world today. But it is sufficient for me to point out very briefly, so I don't need to labor the point, that your normal Darul Uloom education is inadequate for you to analyze the world today. You can't do it. This is a failure of Darul Uloom education. The conventional Islamic scholarship cannot analyze, explain the world today, and guide the people. It's only the scholarship from like Khidr alayhi salam, the people of insight, and so many non-Muslims are showing magnificent insight. I listen to them and I'm amazed. They're saying the same thing as I am saying. They don't have the Quran, but they are absolutely correct in their insight. Why? Because Allah has blessed them with insight. And they're not afraid to turn to insight. So it is Islamic eschatology, which is now being validated by this virus. And so I urge you to turn to Islamic eschatology to understand the world today. I have worked in this subject for 20, 25 years now. And today, after all of the objections of my critics, all of it, today, alhamdulillah, Islamic eschatology is being validated. And so the deaf, the dumb, and the blind cannot ever be changed. But the rest of you, this is your time to wake up. This is